Ernesto likely to become a hurricane by morning. Well, it's been gradually intensifying throughout the day, and Recon found some pretty interesting winds there, justifying the storm that is strengthening right now. Currently at 18.1 degrees north, 64.3 degrees west, still moving quite rapidly though, already reaching the Virgin Islands. At 9 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, it had 60 mph winds, an estimated pressure of 997 millibars, and it's moving northwest now at 17 miles per hour. It's going to gradually continue to curve into a more northerly direction throughout the course of tomorrow as it starts to turn away from the islands and hopefully become a hurricane after it passes by. Well, right now those wind fields extend out still only in 3 of the 4 quadrants, still no tropical storm force winds in the southwest. That will be good news for Puerto Rico and probably why there isn't a hurricane watch there. There is a hurricane watch though for the US and British Virgin Islands, Culebra and Vieques, and it's pretty much the same for tropical storm warnings apart from that it also includes Puerto Rico. It is 20 kilometers from the British Virgin Islands, 27 from the US Virgin Islands, 167 from San Juan, 410 from Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic, and 1565 from Bermuda, which of course the storm will eventually arrive at by the time we get closer to the end of the week. No doubt there could be hurricane conditions there. Well, for the time being, we are looking at damaging winds. The rainfall expectations have gradually been falling, and as a result, it's turned more towards the winds being the main factor instead for these areas, particularly around the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. They could reach hurricane force in some areas depending on how much the storm manages to strengthen tonight, and the storm will be passing through overnight tonight into the early hours. Rain of up to 6 inches still expected though as well. Well, here's the wind field then forecast over the next few days, and the storm turns northerly then towards the northeast, not very quick when it gets up there, and by the time we get to the weekend it passes very close to Bermuda according to the latest forecast, but there is a cone of uncertainty. Of course, it could still deviate quite a bit. By the time we get to the start of next week, it looks a little bit more likely that we'll be seeing impacts in Atlantic Canada there for this storm, which could still be clearly at hurricane force when it makes a run at Newfoundland. Well, we're sort of at the lower end of the estimates right now. National Hurricane Center recently did go with 65 miles per hour, although Recon doesn't really support that in their last few passes. Although ADT is even higher than that, just pushing a little bit above 70 miles per hour in that latest in the latest satellite imagery estimates. So quite impressive for the storm at this time. Well, here it is, that last cone from the NHC, and it's pretty much exactly what we've been showing on according to the models. Really blows up in size towards the end there. Can't rule out going towards the left hand side of that cone, which would really put Cape Cod under a little bit of discomfort, but of course the center of the cone does take it quite a bit further east. Here's the latest GFS model showing the storm's development. It looks like it caps off at mid to high end category 2 status, which is what the National Hurricane Center is still forecasting as well, although it maintains that intensity for quite a long time, almost all the way to Canada there. Nova Scotia possibly getting hurricane force winds in the later part of that run. Of course, Bermuda is the more immediate threat with regards to the strongest winds there. Could get a very close pass as a high end category 2, and then on to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland still as a hurricane according to that model run. Well, as well as the wind, most of the rain will be displaced onto the eastern side as well, so Puerto Rico won't be getting a huge rain haul, although it still could get up to 6 inches in some of the hillier parts of the island, and then the storm continues off northwards. There's a front there before the storm arrives as well, which is going to be enhanced by the influence of Ernesto, so it's going to be a bit of a double-pronged attack there for Bermuda, getting some very heavy rainfall as a result of that whole process, and eventually moving off towards Atlantic Canada. Well, let's take a look at those rainfall estimates. You can see it already building around the Bermuda area before the storm arrives there, and then it increases even further up to and possibly above 20 inches in the vicinity of Bermuda there. That's 500 millimeters. Near where the storm is currently, we are expecting an extra 5, maybe 6 inches near the Virgin Islands and Anguilla, and then further north towards the coast of Canada, maybe 4 or 5 inches up there as well. That's over 100 millimeters. So quite impressive rainfall totals there for the later part of the storm. The earlier part here looks like this storm could have been a lot worse, but still in progress. Sea surface temperatures aren't going to trouble Ernesto. These are probably what you could reasonably expect minimums to be. So at least 28 degrees Celsius, possibly closing in on 30 degrees in a couple of parts where the storm is now. Eventually those sea surface temperatures will drop off quite quickly, but it has to get to about 40 degrees north first towards the coast of the Canadian Maritimes, where those temperatures will drop from 26 to about 21 degrees Celsius. Well, let's take a look at the latest satellite imagery then. The storm looking quite interesting on this imagery, although it's quite difficult to pinpoint the center looking at satellite alone. Convection bubbling up, quite a lot displaced to the western side of the storm right now, not so much on the east. It is getting a little bit swished left to right when you look at this imagery, to be honest. Lots of convection on the south side there, a big pool of it actually over the whole eastern Caribbean, and it is looking a little bit strange. It doesn't look as well defined as it did earlier on today, but certainly its winds have been increasing, and I think at any point we could see a little eye start to pop out from under that new burst of convection in the center to northern part of the storm. But very high cloud tops over the Virgin Islands right now, into the -80s by the looks of things there. This is the water vapor imagery rapid scan showing that those islands are right underneath the main thrust of the storm right now. Certainly in terms of the rain rates and rainfall, the highest winds will probably arrive in a couple of hours. Here's another view, a very close-up view from the Puerto Rico point of view, and it is starting to get a little bit wetter over there as well. 1-2 little thunderstorms, but in general the biggest clouds there are still just off the coast. Here's some more imagery from the Force 13 website, which you can check out in real time and on our automated stream, which is active all the time. This storm moving more northwesterly now. Its speed has slowed down a little bit, and that will gradually continue. But the good news is, by the time we get to tomorrow, maybe tomorrow lunchtime, early afternoon, this storm will be clearing land areas at least for a short time before it arrives in Bermuda. There's some radar imagery, and quite difficult to see where the center of the storm is there, but certainly some really significant rain bands on the eastern side right now. Going to be a long night for these islands.